Welcome to Storyflix. In this video, we will explain Love Me Not. This movie tells the story of two best friends, Akira and Yuha, who have opposite characteristics. Akira is a positive person, while Yuha is a shy person. They are involved in a complicated love story. Yuha likes Akira's stepbrother, while Akira likes Yuha's childhood friends. This is even more complicated because the man Yuha likes have feelings for his sister, Akira. How will their love story continue? Let's find out in Love Me Not. Love Me Not begins by showing Yuha Ichinis walking to school accompanied by Akari Yamamoto, her best friend. Akari is a cheerful person, honest, and easy to make friends with. Meanwhile, Yuha is a shy person who has never fallen in love but dreams of the presence of a prince-like fictional story that is always read in her favorite manga book. On the lunch break, Akari started the conversation by asking about the messages that Yuha had sent to her yesterday. She then shared that she had just met a man in an elevator apartment near her residence where his face looked like the prince in her favorite manga comic. Akari then tells Yuha that if she falls in love, she must build her love with the person she loves with full confidence so that her love is not one-sided. She then said she was hesitant to greet him because she was embarrassed. At first, she thought Akari would laugh at her, but she faithfully listened to her every word. While speaking, a male student named Kazuomi and Rio approached Yuha and made small talk with her. Akari, who accidentally to be there, was introduced by Yuha to Kazu, who was her childhood friend. She looked mesmerized by Kazu's beautiful face. When school was over, Yuha saw the same boy she met in the apartment elevator near her residence in the school locker room. Akari caught her watching someone from a distance and was stunned for a moment. In the afternoon, Yuha visited Akari's house. She was surprised because the one who opened the door was the prince she wanted. She thought to herself, asking why her idol could be at Akari's house. She thought he was Akari's boyfriend. Then Akari appeared from behind the door and introduced a man to Yuha. His name is Rio, Akari's twin brother. Rio turns out to go to the same schools as Akari and Yuha. He is known as a smart student at school. Yuha kept looking at Rio without noticing that Akari was watching her. Seeing the awkward Yuha, Akari understood that Rio was the prince she meant. Akari purposefully pointed out Yuha's homework for Rio to fix. Then, she left Rio and Yuha so that they could communicate with each other. While walking, she met Kazu. The scene then turned to Yuha, who talked to Rio. She then realized that he was not only smart but a popular student. This can be seen from the letter addressed to him by one of his secret admirers from another school. Even so, he always rejects them because they don't match the criteria of his ideal girlfriend. Knowing this, Yuha chose to hide her feelings from him. The scene changes to Akari talking to Kazu at the playground. They seem to be talking about the friendly relationship between Akari and Yuha. Yuha and Akari's initial meeting began when Akari wanted to accompany her friend to go somewhere, but she forgot to bring her wallet and cell phone. Akari then borrowed money from Yuha, and unexpectedly she gave the money she needed. When seeing Akari's excitement, Kazu tried to tease her by saying that Akari is a good girl. She was impressed by his statement. The scene then turned to Yuha, who talked about the person she admired. Yuha looked so shy in front of Rio. Rio then encouraged Yuha by emphasizing that the possibility would always exist at every opportunity. After that, suddenly, Akari's mother opened the door. She thought the person who was with Rio was Akari. Turns out her guess was wrong. Rio looks very upset with the incident. His mother then apologized for the inconvenience she had created. As she was about to leave Rio's room, Akari surprisingly arrived at the house. She was annoyed with her mother's attitude, which was considered presumptuous because she had entered Rio's room and accused him of doing inappropriate things. Long story short, Yuha finds out that Rio and Akari are not blood related, but there are stepbrothers and sisters. Upon Yuha's return from Akari's house, she saw an incoming message for her from Akari. She admitted her mistake and apologized for lying to her about the familial relationship between her and Rio. The scene shows Yuha trying to remember and interpret the incident when Rio interrupted Akari and her mother's conversation, then asked her not to tell anyone. It was then that she realized Rio's feelings for Akari. The next day, when Yuha was in the school locker room, she was greeted by Rio. He then apologized for the incidents that happened the day before. On the other hand, he was surprised to see her embarrassed attitude staring at his face. The scene then switches to Rio, who meets Kazu in the apartment elevator and gets to know him. Previously, Kazu had known Rio because Akari had already told him. Spontaneously they became close friends because they had the same interest in films. Kazu then took Rio to his apartment. Rio looks happy to see Kazu's film collection. After that, Kazu told about his brother, who often had disagreements with his parents, so he chose to leave. Not only that, but he shared his belongings with his brother. On the other hand, Kazu knows that Rio is Akari's twin brother. However, Rio dismissed that fact was not true. Another fact revealed that he was in Akari's class in middle school, and his father married Akari's mother. The scene shifted to Akari, who was surprised to see Rio, who was changing clothes. Her mother looked at the two of them with a strange look. Actually, her mother wanted them not to love each other. After that, Akari chose to go outside to calm down. At a supermarket, Akari meets Kazu and then moans about life's problems that befell her family. She said that she always wanted to run away from the realities of life and couldn't afford to live her complicated life, even wishing she could disappear from the city. Kazu then took Akari to see the city view at night. She was amazed and didn't expect that there was a place as good as Kazu showed her. Kazu said he wanted to visit somewhere else out there, but when he was in that place, he felt the same way as when he was in this place. He then asked her to look at the problem from a different perspective, where she should be able to process situations that occur outside of her so that she can come to terms with the condition. Akari, who was listening to him, was attracted by his maturity. While at home, Rio was waiting for Akari's return. He was surprised because she had not been seen since long ago. While standing on the balcony of his room, he watched Akari and Kazu walk together, and she even laughed with him. Elsewhere, Yuha was restless with her feelings. She wanted herself no longer interested in the figure of Rio. The next day, several female students were seen crowding Rio, who was discussing schoolwork with Yuha. However, besides being handsome, he is smart and charismatic as well. Therefore, many girls want to date him. After school, it rained heavily. Not to get rained on, Rio seemed to be pulling Yuha's hand, then they ran and took cover in a tunnel. In the silent situation, he started to talk about his life. He no longer likes rain since he first faced the harsh reality that his father intended to marry Akari's mother. Rio then changed the subject by asking about Yuha's attitude of not daring to confess her heart, even though she loved that person. Rio advised her that the most important thing about her case is not being rejected, but the feeling of relief that comes after expressing her heart. When they were about to leave the place, because the rain had stopped, Yuha grabbed Rio's hand and confessed that she admired him. For Yuha, Rio doesn't have to accept her as a couple because she just wants to say something stuck in her heart for him to know. That way, she does not have to feel hanged. After that, Yuha was embarrassed and confused because Rio looked surprised to hear her statement. He then thanked her, but he rejected her as his couple. Although relieved by her bravery, it turned out to be painful for her. The scene shifts to Yuha, who meets Akari at her house. Yuha ran to hug Akari, surprised that she wasn't back with Rio. She then cried and spilled all her sadness at that time. She then revealed the incident that had just happened. The next day, Akari faints and is taken by Kazu to the clinic. Rio was annoyed by some of his friends who captured the moment and then showed the photo to him. When Rio intended to give mineral water to Akari, he looked down weakly at Kazu, who had approached her first. On the way home, Akari intended to go to the supermarket, where she met Kazu, but Rio unexpectedly stopped her by saying that their house was in the opposite direction from where she was going. He then handed over an umbrella to her, and they headed back home. On the way, Rio shows his jealousy of Akari and Kazu's relationship by reminding her not to bother Kazu. She then asked him that does Kazu had said anything about her? However, Rio instead switched the conversation by interrogating Akari. They both fight about the answer that must be answered first. They seem to be arguing about a situation that forces them to accept that they are now stepbrother and sister. After that, Rio went away, and Akari felt abandoned by him and shouted for him loudly. He then turned around and said that he was okay. Not long after, a car passed in front of them and almost hit Akari. Rio, who realized that, immediately pulled her hand. Before she had time to thank him, he then kissed her. Suddenly there was the sound of a bicycle slamming. It seemed that someone had witnessed the incident. Akari, who didn't expect Rio's actions, looked very angry. She just didn't want to add to the trouble in her family. She then ran away from Rio. Akari's annoyance continues all the way to school. She tried to get away every time Rio approached her. Elsewhere, Rio tells the events that happened the day before to Yuha. He was even surprised by the action he had taken. He then told Yuha the beginning of his introduction to Akari. In middle school, Rio liked Akari, who was a transfer student. He intends to express his heart to her. He texted her to meet him at 3 p.m. at the park. A moment later, she contacted him. She turned out to have the same feelings as him. After that, Rio got a call from his father, who asked him to go to a restaurant. Arriving at the place, Akari and her mother were already there. Unexpectedly, her mother is Juita, who has filled his father's heart. Rio continued his story. At that time, it was raining heavily. When Akari was about to meet him, she accidentally passed into her mother and Rio's father. Her mother asked her to get to know Rio's father, who often helped her. Apparently, that man is Rio's father. To see her mother unite with Rio's father, Akari is forced to suppress her feelings. Besides, she hoped that Rio would no longer speak his heart because it could affect their family. The scene moves to Akari, who is cooking and accompanying her mother. When Rio got home, he apologized to her and promised to learn how to be a younger brother who wouldn't bother his older sister. The next day, Rio went to Yuha to thank her because only Yuha dared to tell him, so he realized his mistake. It can be seen the tears rolled down her cheeks. She was happy to hear his confession. Elsewhere, Akari meets Kazu, who is making a short film. It was his favorite activity. Long story short, Akari is happy spending her free time with Kazu. Arriving at the apartment, Kazu then met his brother who took some of his film collection. At the same time, Kazu looked sad because his older brother had dropped out of the university, where he studied for no obvious reason. The scene then switches to Akari, Yuha, Rio, and Kazu, who plan to go to the summer festival. Yuha looked graceful because Akari was the one who dressed her up. They seemed to enjoy the event. Kazu is seen playing a game with doll prizes. After successfully playing the game, he gave the doll to Akari, who accepted it happily. Elsewhere, Agatsuma, one of the male students who attended school with Yuha, tried to approach her, who was sitting alone. Meanwhile, Akari was nowhere to be seen with Kazu and Rio. Because they were worried, Kazu then looked for Akari, and he managed to find her. At the same time, coincidentally, Rio saw Agatsuma and Yuha having a conversation. That made Rio jealous of them, realizing his feelings for Yuha. The scene switches to showing Akari, who feels that Kazu's anxiety is caused because he is afraid something has happened to her. Akari thought Kazu liked her because he was very considerate and loyal to her. Therefore, Akari took the initiative to invite him out on a date. However, Kazu refuses to date her, so Akari leaves. Another mystery unfolds that Kazu actually loves Akari, but after seeing her being kissed by Rio, he decides not to accept her. Previously, Kazu had intended to hand over the cassette of his favorite film to Akari. However, he changed his mind. On the other hand, Rio believed that Agatsuma seemed to admire Yuha. At the same time, Akari came to Kazu, who was filming the best places in their school. Then Kazu takes a picture of Akari and finds his feelings grow again when he sees the person he likes. When the summer festival was held at school, suddenly Agatsuma took Yuha somewhere. On the other hand, Akari actually meets her ex-boyfriend, namely Josuke. Akari then asks why Josuke's coming to school and tells him that she no longer loves him. The scene then switched to Rio, who tracked Yuha's location instead of passing by Kazu. Meanwhile, Yuha meets Akari and tells her about Agatsuma confessing his feelings to her, but she refuses. Because Yuha felt that her changes were because of Rio, who had helped her. Therefore, she felt the need to thank Rio. Next, Yuha met Rio to talk about her love feelings. Unexpectedly, Rio is interested and wants to build a relationship with her. They then decided to date. The beautiful sight was then captured by Kazu. Kazu was confused by his feelings because neither he nor Akari was honest in admitting their feelings. Upon returning home, Akari feels lonely, so she invites Kazu to meet. They played childhood games and seemed so excited. After that, they talked about the problems in their lives that they experienced. The scene then shows Rio discussing with his father and Akari's mother. Akari, who suddenly appears, knows that her mother will soon be divorced for the second time because Rio's father will be on duty to America. Akari wants her mother to stay with her husband, so she decides to go with them. Elsewhere, Kazu faces a problem where his entire collection of film cassettes has disappeared. The next day, while in class, Akari wanted to say hello to Kazu, but he ignored her and made her cry. At that time, Rio told Kazu about his family's problems. He advised Kazu to immediately express his feelings if he loved Akari. Long story short, Kazu takes Akari to a place and he does something he has never dared to do. Akari is pleased and accepts Kazu's confession. At the same time, Yuna and Rio were in the same place as them. The film ends by showing the four friends hugging each other. The moral that can be learned from this movie is never to give up on fighting for love. In addition, we must be honest with our feelings and express them to those we love.